we continue on our Just a Few Bad Apples tour. And I just want to say, if the most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, then the 12 most disturbing words have to be, I'm from the police department and I'm here to protect and serve. I want to talk about this case right here. This is a Detroit police sergeant who was given chance after chance by the Detroit Police Department, keeping this guy on the force, because government is not eloquence, it is not reason, it is force. And like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. And keeping this guy on the force put everybody in the community in jeopardy. We're going to watch this and we're going to make some comments on it.
Tonight, a Detroit police sergeant facing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit stemming from an arrest, and it's hardly his first brush with controversy. We first told you about this controversial arrest back in December. Well, tonight, 7 investigator Ross Jones revealing the troubling conduct that came first: domestic abuse, drunk driving, and a last chance from Detroit police.
I think this speaks to a much broader and bigger issue. It's the city of Detroit and the culture that they're cultivating.
Amen. It is a culture. It's not a few bad apples problem. It is a systemic problem. It's not that the system is broken. It's that the system is working exactly as it was designed to work. And that is, hey, under the guise of protecting and serving, they're harassing and collecting from the rest of us. That's the way it was set up. That's what law enforcement is.
Brandon McNeil says Detroit police enabled the wrongful arrest of his client by not taking action against a troubled officer years earlier. Sergeant Samuel Pianessa has been with DPD for 23 years and was a subject of a 7 Action News investigation last year over the arrest of Sandra Wilson.
I can tell you're lying. We know for a fact you're lying.
No, you don't know for a fact nothing because I'm not lying.
Wilson was accused of stealing a credit card she held onto for 15 seconds. It was left behind at this gas station in Detroit, right there on the counter.
And they had it all on video. They knew they had it on video. They reviewed the video, and that guy still had her come to the police station, put the cuffs on her, and arrest her. And if it wasn't for the judge you're about to hear, this lady would literally be, this innocent lady would be behind bars because of an officer the police department knew they had problems with, major problems.
Sandra's crime, DPD would allege, was handing it to this woman in the pink pants, who, Sandra says, claimed it was hers. But police say the card belonged to someone else in the store that night, and while they never caught the woman who used it and had no evidence Sandra even knew her, they accuse Sandra of being involved on the department's social media pages.
No evidence. Don't confuse me with the evidence. Don't confuse me with the details. Don't confuse me with the video. We're just going to jump to conclusions and take somebody's entire life and flush it down the toilet because we're the authorities.
She walked into Detroit's 7th Precinct trying to clear her name. Sergeant Pianessa arrested her.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess this is what you've...
no, because this is what y'all want to do to me.
Sandra was charged with 2 felonies, spent 3 days in jail, and lost her job.
What the...
A Wayne County judge later dismissed all the charges against her, scolding police and prosecutors.
Absurd and ridiculous and wrong. And this was not a thorough investigation.
Well, DPD
But that's all they get. That's all they get is a scolding. They get a slap on the wrist. We'll investigate ourselves. We'll look into it and we'll find that there's no wrongdoing. And if there is a settlement, oh, that's okay. The local tax cattle will foot the bill.
Maintains even today that Sandra's arrest was proper. Attorney Brandon McNeil is now suing the department on her behalf and says it's clear Sergeant Pianessa shouldn't have been in a position to arrest her in the first place.
5 minutes later, we met up at Greenfield and Finkel. He turned him over to me.
Pianessa has been a sergeant for the last 10 years, and his time on the force has hardly been without controversy.
A sergeant. He made his way up through the ranks of sergeant, which means that there are underlings who take his commands, who do what he tells them to do. A stream can rise no higher than its source, and if the source is corrupted, then what can you expect of the underlings who are just following orders?
While at DPD, records show he's caused at least 2 vehicle accidents. The first in 2006 when he was drunk, more than 2.5 times the legal limit.
And they still kept him on the force, a clear danger to society. They would take your license away and lock you up and make you pay a handsome sum. And you would probably lose your job that's completely unrelated to it. But he does this right here, and he gets to keep his police department job where he actually has a gun and a badge, the authority of the state, and a police cruiser.
He was suspended for 30 days. The second came in 2018 when Pianessa crashed a department vehicle, then left the scene.
Wow.
He would later say a dog jumped in front of his car, but a witness to the crash said there was no dog. Because Pianessa left the scene before a supervisor arrived and never got tested for drugs or alcohol, DPD could not determine with absolute certainty if he was under the influence.
And that's why we need police and body cams rolling every second that they're on shift. And it should be illegal. And there should be a heavy penalty if they turn them off. They should never be able to turn those things off. They should never be able to silence them so they can get in their little thin blue line powwows and, contrive plans and, formulate some kind of narrative against you so they can make you guilty and make themselves look good so they can get the accolades and they can get the rewards and they can get the attaboys and the pats on the back. Always record the police. Why? Because cameras don't lie, but police always lie.
He was suspended for 3 days. And as an officer on the street, Pianessa has been accused dozens of times of misconduct, hit with 61 citizen complaints. They run the gamut from excessive force.
Now on this live stream, Christina Mallon says, you just love bashing the police. You are a weak and pathetic person that would never have the courage to do this job. To do this job, you have to throw moral fortitude out the window. To put your hand on a Bible and raise your right hand toward heaven and say, I promise I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is tantamount to saying I will protect and serve everybody's Fourth Amendment right to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects, and actually live the exact opposite lifestyle of what you promised you would do. They trample rights. They major in trampling on rights. Their profession is road piracy. Their profession is extracting more money from the tax cattle as they live as recipients of the tax cattle. It's not about you wouldn't have the courage to do the job. Actually, you have to be a weakling, mental weakling. You have to have no moral fortitude, no moral compass to actually put on the badge, uniform, and gun and say, I have authority over my fellow human beings. I have the right to tell them what to do. They have the moral obligation to obey me and to submit to me. And I will not tolerate contempt of cops. So Christina, I'm shocked that you would say that when we have video evidence after video evidence of not only are there a few bad apples, but the entire bunch in every department, in every avenue in America is tainted with corruption. Look at the Mullen Commission. The Mullen Commission alone and the Knapp Commission from the 70s. So you have the Knapp Commission of the 70s, the Mullen Commission, which was sanctioned by the government. The government looked into itself and couldn't find any good anywhere in the New York Police Department and said that, hey, you remember the Knapp Commission days? You remember how corrupt they were back then? Well, it's gone parabolic here in the 1990s, in 1994. So it's interesting. Instead, you sit behind a mic and talk Shiite. Their actions open a book and page after page and chapter after chapter says, I don't give a damn about rights of Americans. I don't care how much money we extract from the American tax cattle. I don't care how many times I have to tase you and beat you for failing to activate your turn signal. 72-year-olds getting pummeled to death. This guy right here, Gregory, what's his name? Gregory Gross. Remember this guy? This guy can't walk today because of the cops in Northern California, in the Sacramento area. This right here, excessive force lawsuit filed by a 74-year-old man in Madison Heights, Michigan, which is just north of the area we're talking about right here in Detroit. Pretty amazing that anybody would make that assertion that you need courage. No, you actually have to be a mental midget. And you actually have to have no moral compass. And it actually is a requirement that you be a coward to be a police officer. The only element of danger, or one of the top elements of danger introduced in a police department, is brought on by the police department officials themselves. They're the ones that are pulling us over. They're the ones that are terrorizing us. They're the ones that are entering our houses and flashbanging our pets and our babies and shooting our dogs when they come out to do what dogs are, purchased to do, and that's protect the property. Just amazing that there's still people out there. Like I've said, it's not so much the people who are rulers or seen as rulers who are the problem. It's not the few psychopaths at the top. It's all the followers who are telling the psychopaths, please rule us, please protect us, please serve us. What would we ever do without the police force?
To improper searches.
61 citizen complaints is an outrageous number for someone who is a sergeant, someone who is supposed to be supervising other officers.
61 complaints from members of the community on this one officer. Do you think that's a rare occurrence? Do you think this is just happening in a corner somewhere? Or do you think it's systemic? What do you think the odds are that it's only one sergeant that has 61 complaints against him from members of the community he's supposed to be protecting and serving?
In 2020, DPD nearly fired Sergeant Payanessa after he was arrested and accused by his girlfriend, who was also a Detroit police officer, of assault.
And this goes with the FBI crime statistic that shows that if you're a cop, you're 40% more likely than other people who aren't in law enforcement to be a domestic abuser. Across the board, this is a common thread line. This is a common theme. If you're in law enforcement, and it's kind of like the saying that we've been saying a lot, cops don't become psychopaths, psychopaths become cops. It's like, oh, I want that ring of power. I want the authority over my fellow human being.
Police interviews, she said she was woken up in the early hours of November 2018 by Payanessa, who was screaming and repeatedly calling her the N-word. She said she ran upstairs, locking herself in a bedroom, but Payanessa followed her, continued screaming the N-word, then kicked in the bedroom door. She said he assaulted her, grabbing her by the back of her neck and pulling her backwards. She fled. A DPD investigation sustained the allegations against Payanessa.
He's really crossed the line when
You think?
Put your hands on a woman.
Kenneth Reed is the spokesman for the Detroit Coalition Against Police Brutality.
Should there be room in the Detroit Police Department for officers that have been found to use the N-word?
That's a character flaw. If you're doing this to your woman, what are you doing out there when you out here in these streets in the city of Detroit?
Payanessa was charged by the Wayne County prosecutor with domestic violence, but later pled no contest to destruction of property. He was sentenced to 9 months probation.
There's no excuse for his continued employment after this.
DPD
9 months probation after that. So if they will tolerate that in this guy, then what are they tolerating system-wide? I think we know. That's a rhetorical question, because I think we know the answer to it. He who is faithful in a little will also be faithful in much. If you're unfaithful in a little, you will be unfaithful in much. And that's what this guy has shown. And the leadership above this guy, allowing this guy to be on the police force, they're just as bad as him. They're putting the entire community in jeopardy.
He acknowledged it would normally fire an officer for what Payanessa did, but instead gave him this last chance agreement, approved under former Chief James Craig in 2020.
Okay, this is your last chance, Johnny. Don't put your hand in the cookie jar anymore. I mean it. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. Okay, we got to give this guy one more chance. Okay, one last chance. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It said if Payanessa engaged in similar misconduct, he would be fired. He agreed to seek treatment for alcohol abuse and served a 20-day suspension.
And did Sergeant Payanessa actually serve the suspension? No. We have documentation showing he used his comp time in lieu of.
That's Sergeant Samuel Payanessa, badge number S437 from the Detroit, Michigan Police Department. His name should be plastered everywhere, and his community should know who they're dealing with. This is an individual who has shown by his actions that he is of corrupt character.
Serving a suspension. That's not discipline. That's not leadership.
2 years after signing his last chance agreement, Sergeant Payanessa would arrest Sandra Wilson. Her lawsuit, filed in Wayne County Circuit Court, seeks $10 million.
All of those times that they turned a blind eye to Sergeant Payanessa's behavior, that ultimately led to Sandra Wilson's unlawful arrest, and possibly countless others.
Sergeant Payanessa declined to talk to me by phone, but did email a statement. It reads in part, "A half-decade ago, my life came to a crossroads. I was struggling with an addiction to alcohol. When I hit my rock bottom, I realized I could not stop drinking on my own. As a person and a police officer, I strive to be kind and have empathy for those who are struggling and need help.
Wow.
To all those struggling with addiction, there is hope and redemption in recovery." Detroit police also released a statement applauding Payanessa for confronting his alcoholism. They said, in part, "Sergeant Payanessa has had no violations resulting in discipline since 2018, and he has complied with all stipulations from his past cases. Unfortunately, Sergeant Payanessa's conduct predates the department's current disciplinary and risk management protocols, but his progress to date is promising." I'm Ross Jones, 7 Action News.
So by them keeping on him on the force and not replacing him with somebody who's of a higher quality, which how can you be a high quality when you're going to actually put on a uniform, badge, and a gun, have the authority of the state, and just start steamrolling over your fellow human beings in your community? But basically what this department, the department heads over this sergeant right here, is flipping off the community. We don't give a damn about you. We're keeping this guy on. We're not giving you any chances. We're giving him every chance we can possibly get. So I close with how I open. If the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are "I'm from the government, I'm here to help," then the 12 most alarming words are "I'm from the police department and I am here to protect and serve." We got to take a hint. We got to smelling. This is the smelling salts of reality and realize what's actually going on here. If you enjoyed this video, hit the share button right now. Hit the like button. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell notification icon. This channel is about truth. It's about justice. And part of that truth and justice is exposing the evil that's going on in the world. Whether it has a uniform, badge, and a gun and comes with the authority of the state or not, if it's corruption, it is corruption. You cannot hide corruption by putting on a uniform. You're not a moral person. You're not a hero because you say you are. You have to show the actions of a hero. You have to show the actions of a person who actually stands up for his community, has the community's back, and is not preying on them and turning on the cherries and berries and extracting money from them because they made some kind of infraction. You're not here to protect and serve if you're upholding the policies of parasitic politicians and economically terrorizing people that you're supposed to be looking out for. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. If you want to support the channel further, become a member, grab a hard-hitting conversation starting design. You can put on a shirt, hoodie, mug, hat, cell phone case, pillowcase, or whatever. But remember, above all, the takeaway for this video is the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. Today is the day to stop securing your own oppression. I will see you in the next video.